How can family traditions benefit our children? That's the topic we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager, and today I have a longtime friend and an amazing author, speaker, coach, and radio show host. Her name is Cynthia L. Simmons, and she celebrates women in history while guiding today's women to live in an upside-down world. Plus, she offers Heart of the Matter Radio, and that's a podcast as well. And she frequently airs videos of historical stories with a spiritual emphasis. Welcome, Cynthia. I am so happy that we get to have this conversation on Flourish-Meant today.
And I am so happy to be with you because you're such a special person.
Oh, thank you, Cynthia. In this next part of our conversation, I want to dive into some times when family traditions get tricky. When you have people that are involved in those family traditions that might not be the most pleasant of people, and you still have to stick it through anyway. What are some tips on facing gatherings with family around family traditions when you have, let's say, extra grace required EGR folks in your family that are connecting with you?
So you're saying people that are not pleasant.
Yes, we all have those people that we love from a distance, but when they have to sit around the table with us, they can be a little uncomfortable to be around.
We talked to the kids about it so they kind of knew what to expect. And they all just pitched in and, when we prayed, if that individual didn't pray, we just ignored it. And we kind of endured what the person would say and we'd talk about it later. But yeah, they loved their traditions. They didn't want it changed, but we all knew that certain individuals were not going to cooperate.
So you prepared your kids on the front end and kind of processed it with them on the back end after those traditions went through. That's really good advice. So let's talk about some times when people may have to shift because they have new members of the family. If you have new people that you're bringing in, do you adopt their family traditions? Do you meld, like if you've got a marriage in the family or a divorce in the family and you have different people coming in and out? How can you kind of work around that to make those family traditions still pleasant and make those other people feel included?
Well, if it wasn't a family member, we would come close to saying, your really special friends are going to include you in what we do. But we never called them family because I know when I was a little girl, my mother did that too much. And I began to feel like, everybody else in the whole wide world was part of my family except me. So I was real careful not to overdo that. But I would say, you get to be part of what we're doing today, and you're a really good friend. So I would include them, but I didn't call them family. Maybe almost family, but never family. We didn't have anybody divorced, so we were always adding people. Like when my son got married, there were a lot of girls in her family, the bride's family, and so I just added them all in. Now they don't necessarily all want to be part of it now, but they can be if they want to be, and we just let them participate in any way that they want when we're doing our little family traditions.
Do you ever include other people's traditions? Say you do have someone who actually is a part of your family because they've married in and they have their own family traditions. Do you ever work those into your family traditions? And what advice do you have about that?
I haven't done that because the only person that I've had added was my daughter-in-law, and she is so shy that getting her to participate, we were scared she wouldn't. And so, I didn't ask her what hers were. So
Well, that is certainly an option for those of you who might be watching or listening is blending family traditions. If you have step families or if you have something going on where you have people marrying in or that sort of thing, you can talk through ways to navigate blending those family traditions and making those people feel included. I want to address something else that happens when you have new members of the family that may not have family traditions. If you're adopting or fostering children in your home, they may not have a sense of family connection. What's some advice, whether you've had it as your experience or not, that you might give to parents who are facing this new child coming in that needs to have a sense of family, but doesn't share your family history?
I didn't have that happen, but I would think that including them and explaining to them what you do and why you do it would help them kind of feel like they were part of the family, and maybe even getting their feedback on what you do. But we never adopted anybody into the family, so I can't really answer that from a personal experience.
Right. Without the personal experience, I want to say that it still is important for kids, and maybe even more important for kids who are being fostered or adopted, to feel like they have a part in family traditions. It's an important part of them feeling included. So make sure that you talk with them about your family traditions and why you do them. And let them know that they're important and that their voice matters, so that they can feel like they're part of the family as well. So what are some other things that you would like to suggest about history and its influence on family?
Well, your family history is going to influence your family and give them a sense of time. And I think it's very important for you to know your family history and to share it with your family. They may not say much now, but over time, they'll be glad that they know what happened to different members of the family, and use it as a teaching tool. For instance, use it to teach scripture. Tell them this is what the outcome of that behavior is. Look what went wrong. And you can do that with any kind of history. And that's kind of what I like to do, is show, this the outcome of the behavior. And if it's a bad behavior, a lot of times it will have bad outcomes. I think that that's important to do because that's scriptural.
So teaching your kids about their background helps them make better decisions moving forward.
Hmm. Sure does.
Any other advice about family traditions, especially around the holidays? How do you make that a teaching moment for your kids?
Some of the traditions that we have around Christmas are not necessarily grounded in the word. For instance, a Christmas tree, it doesn't really necessarily, it's not in the scripture, but you could explain the history of it and the fact that a man named Prince Albert is the one who brought it to England. He was a German, and that the Germans had a special significance of the tree. He brought it to England, and because he was the Queen's husband, and they made pictures around the tree, then it became a tradition in the everybody else wanted to do that too. So that's kind of why we do that. So that might help them to understand the meaning behind it. But doing that every year is important. I had a friend she was actually tutoring my son in math. And one year she decided they're just not going to do a tree. We're not going to, and her kids were having a fit. And I said, I really think that you need to keep doing what you've been doing because it's important to them. You can see they're having a fit about it. They're upset. And she said, really? You think I ought to continue? And I said, yes, because you've had a tradition going up all this time, and changing things suddenly like that for just no reason is really not healthy. And so I think she went ahead and got a tree that year. So it's good for kids to know the whys behind it. But if you start something, continue to do it unless there's some reason like a trauma or something that you need to take a break from it.
Very interesting. Very good advice as well. So, what are some final tips that you would like to give to parents and families about their traditions?
Well, I think you can think through the things that the values that you have, and think about ways that you can establish those values with your family. For instance, we wanted our kids to talk to each other and even process problems. So as they got older, we would sit around the kitchen table as we ate supper, and we would discuss problems. And that evening meal is a really special time for your family. And it's different than if it's in your home versus a restaurant, because in your home, you're more protected. No one else is going to hear. And so that evening time when all of you are sitting around together talking is a special time. And you can use it to teach them manners and values and discuss problems. And it's a very valuable time as a family to be together. So don't discount that because these days you can watch TV or something else. Spend that time together interacting and having conversation, because conversation is a skill that we are starting to lose because we're watching our phones too much. And you want to instill that in your kids and get them to the point that they are using their language and thinking through problems.
Cynthia, I know that you will be able to give the listeners and the viewers even more valuable insights through your radio show, your speaking, or even your coaching. Can you list all the links where people can access your books or hire you as a coach or a speaker?
My email is cynthia@clsimmons.com. You can find me at Cynthia L. Simmons Ministries or clsimmons.com. And I also have a YouTube page, which is Cynthia L. Simmons Ministries. All those will find me. Although I do have a podcast, it's also on my website, so you can find me there.
I hope that all of you listening were informed and inspired about family traditions for your own gatherings this year and beyond. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourishment.